Welcome to the Service Tech's Guide to Success. I've been a service tech for about 20 years. I'm actually starting my 21st year in the business of HVAC. And I've owned my own business now for 8 years. I'm going to be starting our 9th year in March. So I'm going to go across, we're going to cover a lot of ground over the next few episodes, but this episode, we're going to talk about customer interaction, which includes the peripersonal space, voice tonality, hints, memory, rapport. And the next episode, we'll talk about some sales stuff, tie-down questions, alternative choice, porcupine client fears, the 10 basic client fears, language, emotions, and then we'll get into some technical training, loads and switches, basic thermostat operation, then understanding, once you understand some loads and switches or what those are, then we'll look into understanding what your voltmeter readings are telling you. And then we'll show some examples, live examples, on a live model that I've got here at the shop. And then we'll go over some heat pump thermostats. And I just want to make it easier for you to understand. I know when I first started, anytime I had to go do a heat pump call, because they were different after I learned a few things, some fundamentals, obviously, but I just hated heat pumps. And it was the same with water source heat pumps. But the reason you hate them is just because you don't understand them. So I'm going to hopefully clarify some things so it makes more sense to you and it simplifies it. So today, though, we're going to talk about personal space. So we're talking like first impressions. So when you first go out to a client's house, what peripersonal space is where your brain believes your body begins and ends. And that could be different for all people. So you just don't want to invade somebody's personal space. It's usually the other way around, right? I mean, the customer's usually invading yours. I've had that happen more times than I can count, but just be aware of yourself. And I get over that, it's not a big deal. I'm used to it, but I never invade anyone else's. I make sure to keep that space because it's extremely important later down the road, because if you need to sell them something, that first interaction, if you invaded their personal space, you're 33% less likely to make a sale. And that could be really, really important to your career if you are, just doing sales. Or if you go downstairs and you find the heat exchanger cracked and you need to sell them a new furnace, they're going to be a little bit leery of you if you broke the barrier of their personal space, whether you meant to or not. So be aware of their space. Another first impression deal would be the handshake. So we use what's called a HINS model, which is handshake, elbow, name, smile. I learned this stuff at a dealer meeting a couple years ago, and it was just really interesting because they had done so much research and had a lot of data collected about customer interaction and what they're feeling if you do a few things wrong. So you may not be making any sales and you may wonder why. Well, it could be one of these things. If you're breaking somebody's personal space on a regular basis and, 33% of the time you're not going to get the sale, where you may have gotten a sale if you didn't do that originally. Whether you mean anything by it or not, it's just a chemical thing in their brain. It automatically puts them on guard like a defense mechanism. So you got to be aware of it. The HINS is handshake. So first of all, when you want to shake someone's hand, they explain that you don't want to square up to them, like straight in front of them. It's better to have your body just tilted a little bit. Shake their hand, touch the elbow, and then name and smile. So it'd be, John, nice to meet you. So you'd want to keep your feet planted on the ground, firm handshake, not too tight. Don't try to squash their hand. And if they're extra firm, well, then you can be extra firm, not a problem. But mainly just firm, not wimpy and loose. Make sure it's firm. That's a super turnoff for. I got another guy that one of my coworkers. He just hates that. He hates getting some wet fish handshake, and I hate it too. Just grab it like a man, and even if you're a woman, firm handshake. So basically, one of the things you want to avoid when you shake hands is you don't want to turn your wrist on top. If you turn wrist on top like that, that's like a power move, and they're going to throw up that defense mechanism. It's like you don't want to do those power moves because they're automatically going to have this feeling that they don't like you, whether they realize it or not. So you got to be careful with that, and you want to avoid touching the top of the shoulder. You can touch right here when you shake hands, but don't grab the top of the shoulder. They've done research on this stuff, and it's just not good. It's going to send triggers in the brain, and you're going to be less likely to make a sale. And, probably be less memorable and everything else that goes along with it. So when it comes to driving memory, you want to drive as much memory as possible with your clients, because the more memorable you are, the more likely they're going to tell their friends about you. They're going to remember what you did because of the memory that you created with them. There's just going to be a better all customer experience the higher the memory. So to give you an idea of how to do that, if you just speak, like if you go to give a presentation of whatever kind, or if you're not showing them, but just telling them about the part that's failed in their furnace downstairs, just that spoken word, you're going to only be 10% memorable after 72 hours. They're not going to remember 90% of what you said, literally. Now, when you add sight to that, where you bring them the part and show it to them while you speak to it, that automatically drives their memory up to 65% they'll remember after 72 hours. But the ultimate's what you want. The more memory, the more sales. So, and this is anything, no matter what you're trying to sell, a maintenance agreement, whatever it might be. Sight, sound, and presentation drives the memory up to 80%. So, excuse me, if you find that pressure switch is bad in the furnace, you bring it upstairs and you show it to them and you let them hold it and you talk about it and tell them this is why it failed and this is, just explain the whole situation. You're driving memory. So when you give them a replacement cost, it's gonna be a much easier sell because you've driven a lot of memory and it's a more memorable experience, which is what you want. So that could be, if you're doing a full-on sales presentation for new equipment or something, that might be a video of let them hold your tablet while they watch the video, or let them hold the product. So maybe you've got several different models of thermostats that you sell. Let them hold the thermostat while you talk about it. It's just going to drive more memory. So this is why PTSD exists. Because, a soldier's over there, and he sees things that he shouldn't be seeing, or she sees things that just no human being should have to witness. And they hear things probably that we shouldn't. Nobody should have to listen to. And they're participating, maybe they're fighting, whether it's hand to hand or they're shooting at people and people are shooting at them. So that memory is so vivid that's why it exists, because it has all of those three things that drive memory. I know a little bit about this because my dad was a Marine in the Vietnam War, and he had horrible post-traumatic stress disorder, and that was before it was even being diagnosed. So, and he struggled with it his whole life, and I talk more about it in my book that's coming up. So I'll let you guys know when it's ready. But another thing is rapport. So with rapport, that's pretty easy. Sometimes that comes really natural for some folks, and others it's hard. You've got to really work at it. I'm more of an introvert, so it's harder for me, but you got to make it happen. So let's say if you see their son that's playing out in the backyard, maybe your son's and he's playing soccer, and your son plays soccer. Well, that's a good icebreaker. Oh, my little boy, he plays soccer too. They've been practicing for the last 4 weeks, and they play twice a week. Just break the ice with them, and that's a great thing. But the main thing is to then shine the spotlight on them. Don't just go on and on about how your son's so great and the soccer league that he's in is so great, and on and on and on. You've got to keep the spotlight on them. Let them talk about their son and their experience. And if it's them personally, maybe they like to hunt, and you're talking about, your last hunting experience. Don't talk about how you bagged the biggest buck you've ever had. I mean, you might mention it, but maybe they've got a story to tell. You need to keep the spotlight on them. So, and then we come to voice tonality. And I didn't throw it up on there, but body language is so important too. I don't have a ton of information on body language. I can tell you a little bit here. You've got to be aware of your body language. It says 65% of the first impression is determined by the body language. So you want to be relaxed and not tense and not, just everything. You want to be very approachable. 28% of the first impression can be determined by your tonality. So you've got to be aware of how you're saying things, work on that. Work on being very more of a mellow spoken. When I talk in these videos, I talk really loud because I want you to pick up everything I'm hearing. I don't normally talk this loud, so I wouldn't want to go to a customer and talk this loud and be so overbearing. So you've got to be aware of your voice, bring it down. And I've found with the different techs that we've had, and me personally, that the quieter and the more empathy you show, just like I'm talking to you right now, people are they're going to relate to you easier. And if you make a sale or you're going to sell, don't show a bunch of excitement. That's not a good thing either. So just be relaxed and try to be yourself. Hopefully that's just the way you are. But some of us have to really work on it. So keep that in mind. And I think that pretty much covers it today. We covered a lot. So I hope you learned something. And be sure to subscribe to my video and like it. And go make money.